All right, Sati, I got a question. Is it better to have a good head coach or a good quarterback?
I think most definitely it's the head coach aspect, and here's why. I think the quarterback can be as skilled as you possibly can. You can have the greatest quarterback of all time, and yes, he will get you games. But to actually be a successful team, you need the play calling and you need an offensive coordinator and a head coach that will actually get you down the field and get you some points. And I think the prime example that you can see right now in the NFL is the Steelers. I mean, the first couple weeks, listen, Kenny Pickett is not the greatest quarterback in the world. I'm not saying he's God. I'm not saying anything along those lines. But he is a good NFL average quarterback. He can win you 8 games, the Mike Tomlin way, the 9 to 10 games. He's not going to take you anywhere spectacular, but he can get you down the field. But you have Matt Canada, and Matt Canada is disgusting. I mean, he it looks like he closes his eyes and runs the plays. I mean, it's not proper. You also have the Bills right now as we speak. The Bills have the team to be Super Bowl winners without a question. I mean, this team is super talented, but you see the play calling and you see what Josh Allen's trying to do with the play calling. Yeah, Josh Allen's going to win you games, but then you have games where he loses, where he throws those picks, where he makes those mistakes. And so I think the head coach, like, for example, Shanahan with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a great quarterback, but I don't think he will flourish in other systems. Same with trying to think of other teams. Hell, the Jets are decent and Zach Wilson isn't. I mean, it's not the worst in the world, but Robert Saleh definitely is the reason why that team could win you games. I definitely think the head coach job is more important than the QB job, because if you have an average QB with a really good coach, they can lead you to promising things. But if you have a really good QB but a guy that sucks at play calling, you can't win there. It doesn't help as a team when your wide receivers are running into each other.
Yeah, I mean, I see that argument, and I'm going to have to agree with it. As much as I want to go on the quarterback side, I am going to shed some light to it, though. I mean, if you are talking about an offense that is revolving around one player, it's the quarterback, right? So there has to be some natural skill there. And even though you want to bring up the Zach Wilson, I don't think he's good, right? And we've seen that he's just not good. But you can't teach skill in that way. You can't teach Patrick Mahomes to jump sideways and hit a no-scope 360 on a dart, right? You just can't coach that. But at the end of the day, yes, head coach is most important, because you can have someone like a Brock Purdy, you can have someone like a Tom Brady that you get late into the draft and then just make a whole system around them. So yes, head coach I think is the most optimal out of the two if you're going to prioritize them. Then again, I play that devil's advocate where now we look at the Broncos and we see Sean Payton and we see Russell Wilson, a good coach and what we thought a good quarterback. So there's some divide there. I don't know if it's because they're both good and it just makes them both bad, or it's because it's the Broncos curse. Whatever it may be, at the end of the day, head coach is most important. They run your offense, they run your team, and if you don't have a good head coach, you see these teams are just implode on themselves, whether it be like the Browns, whether it be any of these teams, the Jets, Titans, even the Texans before D'Amico Ryans came over and pretty much saved the shit from sinking. But at the end of the day, head coach is probably the most important, even though the most, I guess, sexy pick is the quarterback. Head coach, you have to hit right if you want to be a good Super Bowl winning team.
And I want to touch on the Denver Broncos real quick, because that is a very rare case. But I will say, I think Sean Payton's coaching is a little outdated. And I think with the implement of the Dolphins and how the Buffalo moves the ball and how Dallas can sometimes move the ball, and the Niners, I think Sean Payton really got carried by Drew Brees in those seasons where he needed him the most. And when you have a guy like Michael Thomas, who at the time was catching 16 passes a game and they were all slants, I mean, Michael Thomas is a 1-for-1 wide receiver. And yes, you could implement that with a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who has wonderful route running, but he's not doing that. Why? Because I think Sean Payton just can't do it anymore. I don't think Russell Wilson has the ability to perform how Drew Brees did with Michael Thomas in terms of how he would perform against Jerry Jeudy. I mean, Jerry Jeudy and Michael Thomas are few and far between. They're both wonderful route runners, but Michael Thomas probably is 9 times out of 10 is going to catch that ball. Jerry Jeudy has those ifs, buts, and maybes, while Russell Wilson is not to the level of Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees would send zip through that ball when you have Russell Wilson, who's kind of hesitant on that line. I think it's a mixture of both. And when it comes to the Broncos case of Sean Payton is outdated and not really going to progress any farther, and same with Russell Wilson. So I definitely think that's a 1-for-1 example. But other than that, I would tail everything to how good is that head coach? How good is that head coach, and how does he treat that quarterback? Because CJ Stroud is a wonderful quarterback. I mean, 1-for-1, he looks amazing. But you got to give credit to DeMeco Ryans. I mean, DeMeco Ryans is really performing to that utmost. Nobody thought this Houston Texans team was going to get any far or any wins at all. I mean, super young team, but we all thought they weren't ready. But now we speak right now, and they are, I mean, they might make playoffs. They're a sneak playoff team. So I will like to test to the head coach more than the QB.
And just to bounce off as the last point, I think if you put Tua in that Denver offense, I think he excels.
You rate Tua?
I do rate Tua because Tua is becoming that Drew Brees-esque quarterback. He's not a scrambling guy. He's going to zip the ball in there, and he's going to stay in the pocket, and that's why we saw him get injured, because he stayed in the pocket way too long, and that's just a timing type of issue. So I do think that Tua is starting to make headway as that Drew Brees-esque quarterback.
It's funny you say that, because I like to tail Tua's success to Mike McDaniels and the weapons that he has around him. I mean, you have track stars running everywhere. I mean, I think if you put you put Dak or Zach Wilson, I mean, all you have to do is throw a fade, and these guys are going to catch it. I mean, these guys are going to blow by their opponents. But I mean, you see when they were against a really good defense like the Eagles, that Tua cannot be that game time manager and cannot be that improviser that, you know, people were thinking he was going to be. That game kind of was a sour taste in Dolphins' mouths, but I don't know. I don't rate Tua too well. I think Mike McDaniels is definitely the reason why Tua is that good. And you kind of see it with that Eagles game, that if when they do go up against those guys who can, you know, not lock down Tyreek, but, you know, give them 1 or 2 plays in that third down conversions where Tyreek isn't as open or Waddle isn't as open, you see Tua struggle a little bit.
So if you guys made it this long, type in the comments what you think is more important. Do you think a top quarterback is more important than a top head coach? We'd love to hear what you guys say. But as always, until next time, it's been Studs.